How's it going, viewers? Welcome back to another video, and today we have a video which is probably just under a week overdue, but it is recap time for week 2 of testing. We're a week and a half out from the first race in Melbourne, but we've got a little bit more testing to talk about, a few questions. I don't have much of an intro today, so why don't we get straight into it? So, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk about, essentially, our final thoughts on the pecking order, some of the technical innovations, and all that stuff we saw in week 2 of testing. But we're going to start with the thing I want to talk about the most, which was revealed, I believe, on day 2 of week 2, which was Ferrari's new upside-down rear wing downforce slash lift slash no drag technique. Which they showcased, and honestly, I love testing for this reason, because when teams come out with something that's completely different to everybody else, or something that's never been seen before, it just makes testing and that speculation so much better. But this new upside down rear wing could honestly be the gap or the bridge between them finishing second or third in the Constructors' title and then winning the Constructors' title. Because the entire concept around it is actually very clever. Essentially, what it does, when they activate the overtake mode, which drops down the front wing and the rear wing, it drops them down, essentially, in a DRS mode. But when they do that, the rear wing pivots on an axle which flips at 180 degrees and flips it upside down. And the way you think of it is, if your wing, rear or front, is the normal way up, it is going to create downforce, which sucks the car into the track and allows it to go quicker through corners. But what downforce does is it creates drag. This sounds like a crude explanation, but it's the best way to explain it. Which, yeah, creates drag and sucks it into the track. But if you reverse the angle 180 degrees of either wing, it then creates the opposite effect, which is otherwise known as lift, or something you would see on a Boeing A380 rather than a Formula 1 car. But what that, like, obviously in the corners having lift is the last thing you want, because it'll suck the car away from the ground, and then the wheels will lift off the floor and you'll spin out. Pretty simple. But if you are able to generate lift on straights, it essentially eliminates the entire properties of drag, because drag is a phenomenon specifically created, or is, an effect specifically rooted to downforce. So if you can completely eliminate downforce from your car on a straight, there are going to be immense top speed and acceleration benefits. And how do you eliminate downforce? You flip the rear wing upside down so it creates lift instead of downforce, and is honestly a really cool way of working around the rules, because there's obviously clearly nothing in the regulations book that states that the rear wing cannot be upside down or cannot create lift or anything like this, because normally in any set of regulations there's no advantage to creating lift, and especially if you're not able to change it from lift to downforce at any given time. Because if you're just going to run a car which generates lift at all times, you're going to get nowhere. You're just going to crash, spin, be slow, etc. But the fact that Ferrari have managed to find a way to be able to generate downforce in the corners and then generate lift on the straights completely blows the whole thing wide open, because they're able to alternate it, where lift is obviously better on the straights and downforce is better in the corners. But having that option of being able to rotate it at any given time, or at least on straights, is a very clever workaround in the rules. And it honestly looks like, at least on tracks where there are a lot of straights, you're looking at places like Monza, Baku, sort of tracks with enormously long straights. Spa is another one. You're going to see massive benefits from the device/system. So, look, it is encouraging. It is definitely encouraging, but we'll have to see how it goes. The other interesting thing, which I sort of thought of straight away when I saw it for the first time, is how safe it is. Because obviously, if you're, when you come onto a straight and you activate the overtake mode, let's say at a track like China on the back straight, where by the time you activate the overtake mode, you're already doing 250, 270 kilometers an hour by the time you activate it. And I don't know, sort of having a bit of panel on the car which rotates that far round, and having it rotate while you're getting close to 300 k's an hour, in my mind, can't be terribly safe. Because obviously it's well and good when it's at 0 degrees or it's at 180 degrees, but there's going to be a split second in the activation of the device where the wing is essentially going to be at 90 degrees, which essentially it gives it similar properties to a brick wall and or parachute. So having a part of the car rotate at that speed, you would think that the wind would just catch it at 90 degrees and just tear it off. But obviously, if they're deploying it now and it's been greenlit by the FIA, they're apparently, like the structural integrity of the device must be validated or valid already and must have already been checked. But it was something interesting that I thought of, that they've been able to essentially stabilize the device and not have it catch like a parachute when it's at that 90 degree angle in the middle of being activated. But that is definitely the first thing I wanted to talk about. Okay, so we're going to keep moving it along now, away from some of the technical innovations that we've seen in testing. And we're going to move on to a question from FST_VRB, one of my favourites. And he asks, who is your favourite for the title? Now, this is probably just an excuse to talk about the pecking order again for week 2. But who's my favourite for the title? Obviously, if we think back to the predictions video from pre-testing, which I would have recorded in January, I obviously said George Russell over here would be the champion. That was obviously jumping on the Mercedes hype train at the time. Now, we haven't really seen this promised, what's the word I'm looking for? The promised speed that was sort of created around the Mercedes engine. So it's honestly hard to tell, but I might go ahead and jinx it here. But if, with that question, favourite for the title as of right now, I mean, it's hard not to pick Charles Leclerc. I'm someone, I like Ferrari. Everybody likes Ferrari, like everybody's a Ferrari fan. That's what Vettel said. I'm not a diehard fan by any means, but I enjoy the Ferrari, right? But due to that, I can sort of take an unbiased view. But it is, from what we've seen, purely from what we've seen on the track and on testing, it is hard not to pick Charles Leclerc. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton is in that car, but Lewis is in his he's in his 40s now. Charles is, off the top of my head, 28 years old. I think it's easier to pick the younger of the two. I think Lewis definitely does have a chance at the title if Ferrari have the best car, but I think Leclerc will just have that edge in crucial moments. So I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc at this moment in time for the title. Obviously, I still want George to win. Obviously, my predictions, and we've got a few other predictions to worry about, but I think that is the pecking order. I think Charles for title. Moving on to the rest of the grid, I think it's Mercedes. in P2, because obviously, from what I understand and from what I've seen, it looks like Ferrari have the best car in both handling, engine, and reliability. Mercedes seem to have the best engine, at least that's what's been rumoured. But it seems like McLaren have the best understanding of the aero package from what we've seen. McLaren have been, I mean, I wouldn't say under the radar, but people haven't really been paying attention to McLaren this season, or at least during testing so far. They've sort of been going about their business fairly quietly, but if I had to say, I'd probably put McLaren in second place purely because they seem to have a good understanding of this aero package, obviously combined with the Mercedes engine, and it's a combo which does look good. So I would put McLaren in second place. I'd have Mercedes in third. They have shown glimpses of speed, but they're probably sandbagging a little bit. And Mercedes have always been very good at sandbagging in the past, so I wouldn't put it past them. Probably put Red Bull in P4, sort of similar to McLaren. We just haven't really seen what they're capable of yet. Obviously, Max was putting in some P2 times and P3 times throughout week 2, but at the front, it is quite hard to pick a definitive answer for each one, but I would probably have Red Bull in 4th place. Okay, so we're going to move on down the rest of the grid. I think my opinion on best of the rest has not changed. I still think it is Haas, with the combination of what looks like a very stable chassis package with the combination of the Ferrari engine. I think they are going to be pretty unstoppable by the other midfield teams. 6th place, I think it's actually Alpine. We haven't seen too much of them, but like with McLaren, quietly going about their plans. Mercedes engine. They notably had a very skinny rear wing, which is obviously going to help on high-speed, long straight tracks like Monza. So honestly, Alpine in 6th isn't too bad of a shout. 7th place, I actually think Audi. Obviously, with some of the runs they were doing, once again, they were looking pretty unstable. I mean, a lot of lockups, a lot of snaps, but considering they've made their own engine from scratch with engineers who haven't done it before, contrary to what some people on Twitter think, I think they've done a fairly good job, and the engine doesn't actually look too bad. So I think Audi are going to be the consistent 10th place finishers this season, if you get what I mean. I think, honestly, it doesn't look too bad. And for a first season in Formula 1, a string of consistent point finishes is nothing to scoff at, really. So, Audi 7th. I think VCarb, I would probably go for 8th place. They look okay. Nothing amazing going on there with VCarb, but then again, they don't look horrific. Obviously, with Lawson in the car, who is no slouch. He'll be able to get a result or two out of it. Lindblad, we have no idea. He is the only rookie on the field, so it's too early to judge how he'll go. P9, I'm going to go with Cadillac. I think, they're not looking too bad, all things considered. Obviously, once again, brand new team. The only reason I'm putting them down this low is just the benefits of new team foresight. Obviously, new teams in the past, they don't normally get off to the best start, but the car looks stable. Ferrari engine did look a little unreliable, but you can't beat themselves up too much about that because they are new. But honestly, I think as long as they get to the end of their first season, I think Cadillac will be happy with that. So, on Cadillac in 9th, I still think Aston Martin are the worst team by a country mile. Obviously, they didn't complete, on the last day of day 2, the last day of week 2 of testing, they completed 6 laps. Whereas the next team, which was Cadillac, completed 99. That is a alarming deficit for Aston Martin. So they are definitely, I think, by far still the worst team on the grid, and they've got a lot of catching up to do. I honestly think that if we get to, when we get to Australia, I wouldn't be surprised if Aston Martin qualify P21 and P22, and Fernando Alonso in P21 is 1.8 seconds off the next car. Not off the pole time, but off the next car. And then finally, obviously, I think I've just made a bit of an error. Throwing VCarb in 10th is what I meant to say, because I completely blanked and forgot that Williams is a team which I support, and that is a team that exists. So I would have Williams in between Haas and Alpine down there in 6th place, and I would have VCarb in 10th. Honestly, Williams, they're not looking bad. There was obviously the whole thing around them completely missing Barcelona shakedown, and I thought it was all over. But they seem to turn it around. They were doing quite a few laps, so that's encouraging. And it honestly doesn't look like they have too bad of a design going. But yeah, Williams in 7th, VCarb in 9th, and Cadillac in 10th. But that is going to be it for this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed. I feel like everything, apart from the Ferrari rear wing, everything that needed to be covered, I think was covered in my week 1 video. So this one's going to be a little bit shorter. But hopefully you all enjoyed. That is going to be it from me. Stay safe, have an awesome day, make awesome choices. I'm going to see you all in the next video. So take care, everybody.